Hi, I'm Greg Germer, and this is the Weekly Ronde. Alright, let's start off the week with the World Championships out in Doha, Qatar. The men's race, well, it was essentially a kermesse for me, largely defined by echelons and crosswinds. At 175k into the race, you had a group of about 30 riders breaking away and going all the way to the line with a sprint finish. Of course, on the line you had a worthy world champion and Peter Sagan. Second place was Mark Cavendish, and third place Tom Boonen. Cavendish and Boonen have both expressed disappointment in their podium placings, but for me, I can't really be disappointed in the result. You had a world championship podium that had 3 former world champions on it, all of them quality sprinters of this generation. It was just the best man on the day won. In the women's race, you had Kristen Wild of the Netherlands was heavily favored for the win. But in the end, it was Annemiel Dieriksen in the sprint finish. The Danish rider was able to hold off also Lotto Lepacito of Finland for third place. Amelia Dieriksen's win in Qatar follows up her World Championship performances in 2014 and 15, and just proves how good of a rider she's becoming as an elite. For me, the craziest part was her only win this year is one stage in the Holland Ladies Tour earlier this year. In the junior women's race, we had Skylar Schneider of the US taking second place on the day in the sprint. She was heavily favored for the win, but in the end was only able to take away silver on the day. My overall opinion on the World Championships is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, you had, for me, what was some very spectacular racing, not overall, but within the finales of the events. But for a lot of people, the lack of crowds, especially after all the enthusiasm in Richmond, was kind of a disappointment. Although we did learn this Friday that the 2018 World Championships will be held in Yorkshire. And if the Tour of Britain is any indication of what we're to expect in Yorkshire, crowds will be the least of the problems that they will be experiencing. For me, the ride of the weekend goes to Anas Ait El Abadi from Morocco. The rider was able to make the final decisive split of the race. A great ride by El Abadi, and for me, it's great to see a smaller nation take on all the bigger nations at the World Championships. Alright, let's move on to Cyclocross. Sunday we saw the Superprestige Zonhoven. For me, it's always the best visual race of the year with the crowds and the sand pit. It's just an amazing race. And of course, for the men, we had the battle of the two youths. We had Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert going tit for tat every moment they could. One would take the lead and then the other one would pass, and it went all the way down to a sprint finish, with Wout van Aert just losing out to Mathieu van der Poel. And in third place we had Laurens Sweeck showing again his progress from last year and how he's been able to improve. And on to the women's side, you had a dominant Sanne Cant take the lead from the start and never relinquish it. You had Nikki Brammer in second place for most of the race, but unfortunately she lost her second place position to Jolien Verschuren in the final lap and ended up in third place. On the day, the American women had a great result overall. You had Caitlin Antonou battling at one point for second place, but ending out fourth on the day. You had Rebecca Faringer in her first European race ending up 11th, and Elle Anderson in 15th after starting strong but then fading a little bit toward the end of the race. Back in the US, we had the US GP of Cyclocross in Boulder with Yannick Ekman and Amanda Miller taking the wins on day 1. Day 2 saw Melinda McCutcheon take the win in the women's race, while Yannick Ekman was able to again take the win on day 2. The best ride though in Boulder was second place on day 2 in the men's race, Jonathan Page. 40 years old, 4 kids, and still going strong. He just shows he still has a bit of fight left in him, and even though this is probably going to be his last year, he's going to go out swinging. The other big race over in the US was Gloucester, the self-proclaimed World Championships of New England, with Curtis White taking the win both days in a strong performance. On the women's side, you had Ellen Noble taking the win on the first day, while Helen Wyman took the win on the second day. The result for Wyman is going to be a big confidence boost going into this weekend's Valkenburg World Cup. other side of the coin, we had probably the most notable result of the weekend, but not for the best reasons. We had Jeremy Powers just having what can only be described as a very big off day, finishing 13th in Gloucester. For him, with the World Cup this weekend, it's probably not putting him in the best mental position, but he is such a strong rider that you don't really want to count him out at any point during the season. Whew, that was a lot of racing this weekend. I'm Greg Germer, this is the Weekly Ronde, and I will see you next week.